Congratulations to those people who have cleared the prelims this time. Considering this has been one of the toughest in the recent past, those people who have cleared might as well want to make the best use of it. It's in a way a golden opportunity that you should not be missing out on. So what I'm going to discuss today is the plan for the optional subject of sociology. When I say plan, what is that you're going to do for the next 50 days that is there. So starting from, let's say, 25th of June, there are about 50 plus days, close to 55 days or so, right? So I have charted out a plan in terms of how to make the best use of the next 50 days from the point of view of the optional subject, especially the sociology optional. Before I move on to discuss these things, briefly about myself. I am Killi Chandra Sekhar or Chandra Sekhar Killi. I am an IAS officer of 2014 batch, and I've served the service for about 5 years and have quit from the service in 2018, and from then on I've been involved in mentoring aspirants, and throughout the cycle of the preparation of the aspirants I've been helping out people, including teaching sociology as an optional and also some parts of GS, especially the Indian society or social justice, and also overall mentorship in terms of looking at the kind of answers that students have been writing. Okay, and if you look at my journey also, I have cleared UPSC in 2013, that is CSE 2013. That is when the current pattern was introduced with only one optional, and this was my third attempt. And in all my 3 attempts, I've managed to clear the prelims, and I've given mains 3 times and attended interviews 2 times. And in my third attempt, I made it to the service with All India rank of 234. And what has helped me to get through the service is primarily my score in sociology optional and also my GS main scores. So that is why you may want to listen to this next 20-30 minutes of session or strategy carefully, because I managed to be among the top 20 as far as sociology optional is concerned. And if you look at GS mains also, overall top 40 in terms of the total GS main score, and more so in GS1, I was among top 10. Now, how did I manage to get such a high score relatively in GS1? Primarily because of the sociology and your Indian society interlinkages, right? So you have to also keep in mind that, see, we are here to look at how we can score or maximize our score in sociology optional. But beyond that also, you should be open to the fact that there is a lot of interlinkage, especially with GS1 and certainly GS2, GS3, ethics also, case studies. If you look at some of the case studies, you can very well use the insights of sociology into your in your case studies. For example, every now and then there is some case study with respect to, let's say, tribals, there is a case study with respect to, let's say, women or working women, sexual harassment cases. So when you look at such case studies, insight that has been brought by a person who has studied sociology as an optional is going to give that extra edge. Fine, right? Right. So this is briefly about me. Now let us quickly look at the next 50 days plan for your sociology optional. Okay. Now in the next 50 days, you should be focusing on 4 primary pillars. Okay. When I say 4 primary pillars, number 1 is your consolidation, next is your answer writing, then revision and prediction. So I will touch upon all of these things one by one, and what do you mean by these pillars is what we are going to focus in the next 15 to 20 minutes. Okay. Right. So as I have already highlighted, there are about 50 days. So you can divide into several weeks that are there. So about 6 weeks, and this is what is your 6 weeks until 10th of August. Why 10th of August? Because from here on, from 10th to 21st of August, you should be focusing primarily on GS revision only. Okay, so you have, ideally you should be stopping your optional preparation by 10th of August. Why? Because again, if you look at the schedule, you have about 5 days after the GS4 paper. So you have 5 days for proper revision, and if you need one more round of tests also can be attempted during those 5 days also. So that is why it is important for you to complete whatever is possible with regards to the optional subject by 10th of August. Okay. Now, how do you plan these days is what I'm going to highlight on. And when you're going to plan out, the most important thing that you have to look at is your consolidation. So these are the 4 pillars. So the most important thing is your consolidation. What do you mean by consolidation? And especially those people who are writing the mains for the very first attempt, first time. Okay. I'm pretty sure you might have left quite a few topics also. You might not have even touched once also some of the topics. You would not have had time to do some bit of answer writing also. So there's lot of things that would be going on in your mind in terms of how do I manage to complete the syllabus, write as many tests as possible, and how do I manage to complete the paper, because as far as mains is concerned, one very important golden rule is that whether it is your GS papers or whether it is your optional paper, you have to try and attempt all the questions. Okay. And with respect to time management, relatively it is easier to manage the time for the optional subjects compared to your GS papers, right? The number of words you tend to write in the 3-hour paper of GS is slightly more than what you end up writing in your sociology paper. So that way, it shouldn't be a big deal for you to complete the paper, and obviously for that you have to do some bit of writing practice, especially your test series. Okay, so I will talk about answer writing. I will talk about how you are going to schedule your test series also wherever you want to do. Okay, those things also. But before getting on to the answer writing part and test series, I would want to highlight on the first part, which is your consolidation. Okay. So when I say consolidation, what are the things that you're going to look at, right? You would have had some notes ready. Okay. If you have attended any of the coaching classes, or if you have prepared on your own, you would have made some handwritten notes, or some people are quite comfortable with digital notes. So whatever is handy with you in terms of whether it is handwritten notes of yours, or any digital notes, okay, that is your primary source. This is your primary source of consolidation, okay. Then what are the other sources? The next very important source is your mock tests, quite important, okay. If you have given tests in the past, or if you have not given, and if you plan to write the test now on, every mock test is going to be very important, because there is lot of things that you put onto the answer sheet, okay. And also based on the model answers, in some cases there will be analysis available of those tests, okay. So the answers that you write, the model answers and the analysis, all of that is also going to be a very rich source of material for you, okay. So this is the second important source for you as far as your consolidation is concerned. And third important source is current affairs. And as you been seeing, right, with each passing year, the trend is so that there is lot of interlinkage with the current affairs, okay. So whatever preparation that you're doing for the current affairs as part of your GS, especially GS1, GS2, you are anyways going to use the same material itself, just that you are now more aware of the fact that how do I present those things, how do I integrate those things into my sociology answers, okay. So current affairs, whatever updates that you get in terms of current affairs. And as far as current affairs is concerned, there would be some good amount of backlogs. Why? Because most of you would have left your optional preparation in the month of November or December, because you were switching to your prelims preparation, right? So there is certainly a good amount of backlogs in terms of trying to link what all current affairs updates are there for sociology mains point of view, right? You have been preparing for the last 6-7 months all the current affairs material to crack only the multiple choice questions or prelims based questions. Now we have to switch the gear, and you should be in a position to have the content ready for your mains answers, right? So this is also a very important source, especially for the optionals like sociology, anthropology, PSIR, okay, or for that matter public administration. And the fourth important source of material for you is your PYQ analysis. Preferably last 10 years, or at least last 5 to 6 years, okay. You would have done some bit of practice of PYQ. So if you have not done any of those things, you would be doing some of it. And if you look at some of the test series also that you would be planning, right, most of the test series will have some of the other PYQs integrated into the questions, okay. So your analysis of PYQs, okay, model answers corresponding to PYQs, right? If you tend to also look at some of the toppers answers for some of the PYQs, right? All of that is going to be your fourth important source of material for consolidation. Now all this material is available with you at disparate locations. Everything is at different locations, right? Now what you have to do is you have to try and prepare some kind of a short notes, or what we call as micro notes, out of all this material. And that micro notes will be according to the syllabus, according to the topic, right? For example, right, if you have to, I've picked some of the micro notes that were available of some of the toppers, okay, right? If you look at one simple example, right, look at this topic. This is a topic of sociological imagination, right? So everything associated with sociological imagination, from your notes, from some model answers, some examples based on current affairs or analysis of PYQ, everything associated with sociological imaginations, all the important points should come and should be jotted down in a point-wise format, something like this. Or another example, another person's short notes is available here, okay. So this is what you have to prepare. This is what you have to be preparing by the end of the consolidation phase. Okay, now why is this preparation of micro notes very important? See, and you would have also seen some people who have been writing mains. Nowadays there are quite a lot of YouTube channels. They are able to and if you look at some of the YouTube channels, people will be following those people who are entering the exam hall, and you would have seen some people carrying some short notes and even trying to revise at the last minute also, right? And those are precisely the short notes or the micro notes, and you should be in a position to prepare those things, because see, in the last 5 days before the exam, because after your GS4 paper is done on the Sunday, you have about 5 days before your language papers, and on Sunday you have your optional paper. Okay, right? In those 5 days, at least one round of revision, or even some people manage to do 2 quick rounds of revision, and that is only possible if you have something like these short notes, micro notes. Okay, now how do you try to squeeze all of these material into these kind of short notes? So if you look at a topic of sociological imagination, ideally a micro notes will be with respect to sociological imaginations will be done in, let's say, maximum 2 sides of 2 pages, right? Not more than that. Everything associated with sociological imaginations, short points, dotted point, or some kind of a, even you can even integrate mind maps also into it, right? And that should be done in, let's say, 1 or 2 pages at the max. So likewise, for every topic you should be able to come up with the micro notes, and this ideally should be prepared by what time? Ideally by this 5th week, right, around 29th of July. And now why am I insisting on this particular date? Because ideally I would want that you try and use the micro notes for revision and attempting one final round of tests. Okay, so during the week of 6 you might want to have a full length test of, let's say, paper 1, and during these days you might want to have a full length test of paper 2. So ideally you try and revise the micro notes and attempt this final full length test. Now that I have touched upon the tests and how you should be using the micro notes to attempt the test, let us move on to the next pillar, which is your answer writing. Okay, now a lot of people have this question, sir, what should I do? I would say at this point in time, you may not want to do the daily answer writing practice, okay, because anyways you have to write some mock tests. Okay, so ideally speaking, for optional paper I would insist that you have about 8 tests. If it is too much, maybe 6 tests. Okay, but ideally 8 tests. Why 8 tests? Because 2 tests, 2 sectional tests for each paper, right? So that comes to about 4 tests, and 1 round of full length test before you switch to your GS revision. That is around August 10th, when you completely switch to your GS preparation or GS revision, okay, and leave the revision or preparation of optional aside. Okay, by then you should be able to write 1 round of full length tests of paper 1 and paper 2. Okay, so I've just given some ballpark dates. Okay, it's right, it's not cast in stone, but somewhere around these are the dates that you can decide on to have these tests. Now I would also highlight this fact that try to freeze the schedule of your tests as soon as possible in the next 1 or 2 days. And once you have decided to fix the dates, just stick to it. For example, if you have prepared the schedule of sociology optional, so let's say sectional 1 you plan to do on, let's say, 7th of July, or the last, let's say, 8th July, then 15th July, 22nd, 29th, 5th. Okay, then 10th, right? So likewise, so once you have frozen the dates, just stick to it. That is cast in stone. Why I'm trying to highlight this fact is that I've seen across many years, see, for the last many years, from 2018, I've been mentoring almost every year people who have been writing mains exam, right, and optionals also. So a lot of people tend to get their answers reviewed, okay, the evaluated answers reviewed, right? And I see a lot of people try to push their exam, their mock tests, okay. They would have planned for the first mock test on this day, and what is the excuse that you get? Sir, I've not consolidated the content, I've not revised. Okay, so this is a common excuse, right? So even if I give you n number of years, 5 years also, you will have this feeling that, okay sir, I might need some more days for one more round of revision before I become very confident of attempting a paper, right? So this is going to happen even if I give you 20 years also, right? This kind of a feeling you will be having, right? So there is no excuse for that. Once you have decided on the schedule, the same applies to your GS papers also. That is cast in stone. Don't try to push those dates, okay? Now, even if you have not prepared, say if you have planned for, let's say, paper one sectional test, that means first 5 chapters of paper one would be part of that test, okay? And you have not revised or you have not consolidated, you are able to do only for 2 to 3 chapters. That is fine. Even if you have, even if you are prepared 50% for 50% of the syllabus, still you go ahead and write the test, right? Okay. And see, invariably there will be an occasion also, despite so much of preparation, there will be some bouncers, some questions, some thinker's name that you have not heard about, right? And based on some kind of a calculated guess, you try to write some answer in the exam, right? So it is kind of a practice for you also, without preparing also, with some kind of a just superficial knowledge also, are you able to attempt the paper, right? So that is what you try to do in the mock tests, fine. So don't try to push those dates, and these are the number of tests. And I've also I would also want you guys to have one round of test if possible in those 5 days. So let's say after, between on 26th of August or 27th of August, you can have one round of full length test for paper 1 and paper 2. And even that also try to simulate the exact exam situation, morning 9 to 12, 2:30 to let's say 5:30, you try and do those things, fine, okay. And see, simulation is quite important. You try to simulate even your GS tests also. Few days before your GS paper, try to see if you are able to sit through 6 hours in a day, morning 9 to 12 you are able to attempt, and then take a break, and then from 2:30 to 5:30 you are able to write, because you'll get to know a lot of things, right? What are the things, right? What is your energy level? What is the kind of food that you would want to have in the break to make you attempt the paper well, right? In my case, right, I have been having this syndrome of not eating food in any of the exams, right? I don't tend to eat food. Then how did I manage? So somehow with some kind of a glucose water, or I would not suggest this, but in my case I had to take some energy drink. I would not suggest this if you have not tried before, right? But right, and how did I know that I would need some kind of support of these kind is only when I tried this during the mock test. I've given a simulated test. I realized that by the evening session, either my wrist is paining or I'm completely drained out of energy, right? So I have to find a way out. And for the in fact, my wrist used to pain after during the second session of the exam. So I used to carry the Volney spray and have some kind of a handkerchief rolled onto my arm, right? So all of those things, I'm not saying this is an extreme scenario, but still, why take a chance? And whatever possible things that can go wrong, you try to test by having a simulation, fine, okay. So in the last 5 days before the your language papers and the sociology, the optional paper also, you try to have a simulated full length test, okay. So this is the second pillar, which is your answer writing, okay. Third important pillar is your revision. Now a lot of people ask how many rounds of revision. I would say ideally 2 rounds of revision, right? Now 2 rounds of revision before you switch to your GS preparation. That means by the end of around August, 10th of August, because this is when you're going to switch to your GS preparation, right? By this time you should be able to have your 1 round of revision, okay? And how are you trying to plan out your revision, okay? The best way to plan out your revision and try to stick to the schedule is by aligning your revision plan with your schedule of tests. That is why it is very important for you to freeze the schedule. That's why I have been insisting on having your yeah just give me, I'll have to maybe use the yeah right. So so this is, that is why I've been insisting on having your test schedule ready, okay? So for example, so for this particular test there are 5 chapters of paper 1 that will be tested, 5 chapters. So can you not plan your first round of revision according to this schedule? So your first round of revision for the first 5 chapters of paper 1 will be done by about this day. Likewise, chapter 6 to 10 of paper 1 will be done by this day. Paper 2, part A and part B will be done by this day. Part C will be done by this day, right? So that is why freezing the schedule of tests is quite important for you, and that is where you can align your first round of revision, okay? Your first round of revision can be aligned along with the tests, okay? And the second round of revision is something that you can do before in the gap that is available between your GS4 paper and your sociology paper, those 5 days, okay? Right? So typically 2 rounds of revision is good enough, because you may not be having much. If required, maybe you can squeeze in 1 extra round, but I would say at the bare minimum, you try to have 2 rounds of revision and try to align your first round of revision with your schedule of the test series. Fine. So this is your third pillar, which is your revision, right? Because see, without any of these pillars, right, your preparation is going to be incomplete, and you're going to lose out on the golden opportunity of writing mains, because looking at the level of unpredictability associated with prelims, right, though in a way, right, you should give I would say luck has also been playing relatively more important role of late, okay, right? So why waste this attempt and compromise on any of these pillars, okay, right? So make the best use of this particular attempt, okay, and try to you should be thinking that this is going to be my last mains, okay, because the level of unpredictability that is there, you never know about your next prelims, right? So give your best, and if you're going to give your best, you are going to focus on all these 4 pillars, and none of the 4 pillars should be compromised. Fine. So the last pillar that you have to focus on is prediction, and this is where lot of people, this is what is going to give you that extra edge, right? How did I manage to score such a high marks in sociology as well as GS mains also, okay? I don't have a humanities background also. I'm an engineer, an MBA, I worked in the private sector, no humanity. Despite that, I managed to do it. One of the important things that has given me that extra edge is the ability to predict the questions, right? Now, how do you try to predict? if you have, anyways, during your consolidation, during your answer writing practice, right, you are anyways going to look at the previous 10 years questions and try to analyze the model answers or sample answers, right? So looking at those 10 years questions, you spend some time to also look at how potentially a different question could be asked, right? So as an example, I will mention, let's say, chapter 1 of paper 1. So this is a quick list of questions that is there of chapter 1, about 20 plus questions across last 10 years, and based on these questions I have tried on my own to do some kind of a prediction. What is, see, anyways you are anyways trying to look at you are going to look at those previous PYQs. You will do some bit of writing practice of those PYQs. So if a question is getting repeated, and there is a good amount of probability that some questions do tend to get repeated, especially as far as optional is concerned, right, rephrased in a different way, right, because there are only so many topics in subtopics that are available in social. So invariably the questions have to be repeated, the topics have to be repeated, okay, right? So those, if the question is getting repeated, you are able to write a good answer, your competitor is also able to write a good answer. Now what is it that is going to give you that extra edge compared to your competitor? It's see, anyways, UPSC is a relative battle. Okay, if you're able to write a repeated question that has been asked in some of the previous year questions, your competitor is also able to write. Now, where do you stand better than the others is your ability to guess some questions, okay, and the better hit ratio that you have, right? For example, I will give you a example of, let's say, a question. There was a question in geography about the cyclone called Phylline, okay, right? So when I was trying to revise, I was looking at my current affair notes, and then I was looking at this incident of Phylline that has happened, and suddenly it clicked to my mind that the name looks quite peculiar, right? Is there a possibility that, okay, UPSC might want to test how is that tropical cyclone is named? What is the naming convention? Now this is an exercise I did during my revision, that okay, beyond my previous preparation for the previous year questions and the mock test, right, is there anything that I can also predict that possibly UPSC will think on these lines, right? So you are trying to get into the mind of a paper setter by looking at your previous year questions, right? So you are acting like an AI model. What is AI model trying to do? It is depending on the historical data, it is going to predict something, right? So similarly, you should be able to get into the mind of a paper setter and think of certain questions. So if you look at paper 1, based on these 20 questions, I have just tried to predict some questions, like, let's say, if there is always every now and then there is a question of comparison of the disciplines of sociology versus anthropology, or social anthropology, sociology versus history, sociology versus political science. So based on the previous year questions, now I thought, okay, it has been some time that a question on, let's say, sociology versus economics have been asked, right? So this is a one question that you can predict, okay? There has been a question on the quote of sociological imagination given by C. Wright Mills, and C. Wright Mills is a very important thinker, okay? Beyond those standard five, 6 important thinkers, C. Wright Mills, you study about him in the chapter of power and many other places, right? Sociological imagination. So if one quote has been mentioned and based on that a question has been asked, then what if there is another important quote also of C. Wright Mills? So I have predicted one more question. Likewise, I am able to try, for each chapter I may be able to let's say predict some 4-5 questions, right? So across 2-3 papers, 2-3 chapters, even if one is a hit, right? See, I'm not saying you will get 1 or 2 questions out of this. But even in 2 to 3 chapters, you're able to predict some 10 questions across 2 to 3 chapters, and even one question is a hit for you. That itself is going to give you an edge of 1-2 marks. So likewise, for every 3 chapters, 1-2 marks, and you extrapolate it to 2 papers, that is what is going to give you that extra edge of 10 to 15 marks, purely based on your calculated guess and prediction, right? So uh, try to wear the hat of the paper setter. Think like what a UPSC paper setter would, because the team that is there, they are also trying to come out with questions, and they also have reference of the previous 10 years, and I'm not very surprised if they tend to use the AI tools also try and like kind of rephrase or predict. And you might also want to use, but don't get too deep now into AI, but again, just feeding previous year questions. If you want to predict some questions, you try and do it, but don't do a PhD, don't waste too much of time, right? But this is an exercise that is worth doing for all your papers. I'm not only saying about this only your optional papers. You can try and do this for your GS papers also, right? Okay, fine, right? So this is the last uh, pillar that I wanted to highlight about. Okay, fine. So this is pretty much. I don't want to spend too much of time. Also, I am, because all of you are quite busy. Right? You are racing against time. But again, I just wanted to share my own experience of how, based on my own experience of writing 3 mains and being able to and having scored very high marks in sociology optional. And this is not only based on my experience. Okay, after me clearing, I've been mentoring people across years, and I've been going through the changing trends, the way the toppers have been writing the answers. So all of this is based on also the insights of the answers that have been written, or the strategies that have been employed by the toppers across many years until the last year also, right? Fine. So this is a collective knowledge of not only my experience, but also the experience of many people who have been able to score very well in the last many years. Okay, right? So these are the 4 pillars that you would want to focus on in the next 50 days. Fine, right? So that is pretty much that I wanted to share. All the very best. Make the best use of, because clearing prelims in such uncertain situations and uncertain papers is itself a big achievement, and I'm pretty sure you would not want to waste this golden opportunity. Okay, right? All the very best.